Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this episode of BRM Brownbag. We are in episode number 43, and today we have a great friend, a keynote speaker, and joining us from Virginia, Victoria Harness. Victoria Harness is manager of customer demand at Virginia IT agency. She was a great keynote speaker at the BRM Connect recently concluded. I'm so excited to have her. She's got a lot of stories to tell her, but I will ask her to tell about her journey. Thanks so much, Victoria. This BRM Brown Bag sessions are for practitioners to learn from real world leaders about what's important for BRMs to succeed. And I thought that this is no other better person to call than Victoria. Before the keynote, we already arranged that we wanted to do the session, but it was great to catch up there at the BRM Connect in Kansas City. So we are excited to have you here, and thanks for taking time. Tell us about your journey so far and your current role and what inspired you in this particular journey, and give us a little bit of a memory lane what you have
Okay,
done so far.
I will do that. And thank you, Suresh, for having me. I am so excited to be a part of this brown bag. And as Suresh said, we've been talking about this for quite a while, and I was very excited to share some stories, especially since so many people are starting on their journey
Right.
or are midway on their journey. And if there's anything that we can learn from each other, I totally want to envelop, having each other, us learn from each other. So my journey, how it started, I'm going to go back a ways without giving my age away. I started working with the state of Virginia through Northrop Grumman, who had a single contract with the state of Virginia. And that's because the state of Virginia had a goal to consolidate and modernize the IT infrastructure.
Mhm.
They did not have the money nor the resources to be able to do that. So that's why they set it out for bid to get another company who could take advantage of that.
Right.
So working for Northrop Grumman, I came in as a project manager. I had done some project management, didn't love it because I don't really like the details. I'm more of a bigger thinker. So came in to do that. About 6 months in, the leader said, "Hey, we really like what you're doing. What would you like to do going forward?" And I named the BRM role without even knowing what it was. I liked connecting people together, bridging the gap. I liked coordinating and pulling people together. And I liked really asking a lot of questions. I like to think I'm very curious. I asked lots and lots of questions. In fact, I've rubbed people the wrong way sometimes because I ask so many questions because I want to understand. But I feel that it really, when you start asking the right questions and pull those threads, you get a better understanding of what the problem is they might have that they may not realize they have, which in
Absolutely.
turn brings about value as a BRM.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that started it. I then became a full-time employee on this program with Northrop Grumman, doing that role, did that for about 12 years, left the state to work for a SaaS company in the recruiting industry, similar type of role as a program manager, came back to the state as a customer account manager, which I know sounds very tactical, but it really was the strategic arm
Right.
of an account representative with state agencies.
Right.
Virginia IT Agency manages IT infrastructure as a service provider for 67 executive branch agencies.
Wow.
So that's a lot of agencies with a ton of different lines of business and 55,000 users across the state of Virginia. So we provide their network infrastructure, security, help desk, PCs, server, anything to do with
It's a lot.
infrastructure,
It's a
as
lot.
well as some other services that we manage in-house from a value perspective. In that role, I then became a manager over a team of CAMs.
Right.
I was an interim director and then had an opportunity to jump into something different. And I chose that. So I didn't go like a director path. I went the path as a demand manager. Now, why would I do this?
Mm.
I still get to do all the fun things that a BRM gets to do, but
Right.
I don't have as many of the headaches.
Sure.
So I'm actually the liaison and host for 3 customer-facing meetings that we have.
Nice.
One is strategic, one is the voice of the customer, and one is a larger scale for our IT resource
Right.
folks within our agencies. And that bi-monthly meeting it has about 180 people on the line, and I host it, help put it together. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Um, Go ahead.
Ex
Did you have a
well,
question?
when I was telling that, I've been observing you for a long time through the BRM Connect conferences or conversations, what really was very distinctive with you is your authentic leadership. You're being very clear, upfront, honest about things, which I think I love about the whole thing. Because as a leader, you carve your own path. Like the one that you said, I was just thinking on my background when typically people would say, "Hey, I want to go up this path, go as a director." That's obvious, no brainer, right? But you choose to do different. And that's what I call as
Yes.
authentic leadership. You say, I want to trust my instinct. I want to think what is the most part of it. And I'm just thinking about visualizing what you would do for the 180 people hosting on that. It's a similar kind of the conference part of setting. So I was just trying to visualize what we are saying. So I thought I'll just tell you that you're an authentic leader. You lead from the front. You take charge and do things with nobody else does that. And then that puts you into a different pedestal altogether. So
Mhm.
bring it more. We'd love to hear about it, but we'll talk about what topic we will cover
Yeah.
briefly. Complete your
Well,
flow of
so
thought.
it's interesting you say that because at one point in my career, I did think that, I'm going to go manager, director, all very title. And honestly, for folks out there, you don't have to chase a title. You can be extremely influential
Right.
without a title.
Excellent.
It's based on how you present yourself,
Right.
what you know,
Right.
the questions you ask, and then how you commit and follow through. People know they can depend on you.
Yeah.
I talk to chiefs where I work, and there's one in particular, and he and I talk regularly. So if someone has a question for him, they'll come to me to talk to him because I have such a good relationship,
Absolutely.
because I know the questions to ask
Right.
to get the answers that are needed.
No,
So
absolutely.
so I really think, again, don't focus so much on a title in your journey. Focus on what you enjoy doing and how you can be the best at that role while still providing value and being that trusted partner that people seek.
Awesome. So this is why I think we chose this topic around the communication part. And I'll give you a little bit of context of why this is important. Traditionally in IT, we have been very pathetic in our communications. The way we talk about with senior executives to partners to even our own local functional and departments, the way we talk about is not that powerful. It's not persuasive. I'm not talking about just the language or the vocabulary or the tonality. It's different. So, and you have been really pioneering this whole part of communication. So tell us a little bit about how much important is communication, and let's talk about why people, sorry to say, suck in communication because they don't really understand how to deliver it. Give a little bit of a spin around, particularly in any agency or anything of that sort. What's the problem that prevents people to communicate effectively?
So I think there are two things. I think that people get caught up in a very linear focus in what they know without
Right.
thinking that bigger picture
Right.
and who their audience is. And then number two, I think, honestly, I hate to say this, I think people get lazy. All of us know the person who gets an email
Right.
and forwards it and says FYA. And there's a whole thread of like 7 different emails,
Right.
and you're trying to go through to see what are they trying to say? Why is
Right.
it important? And what do they need me to do?
Correct.
So, from a communication standpoint, I like to say, and I said this in my keynote, I will admit I am ADHD. So most people would think, oh my gosh, that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So most people would think inability to focus. So that's a problem for you. Actually, it's been very beneficial because in order to make sure that I have the proper focus,
Right.
when I have a communication to help myself, which in turn helps others, I dig down to understand what's going on, why is it important, who's affected, or who is this relevant for? Where can I find more information, or where, where is this relevant? And how, how do I get more if more is needed? And if there's a question, ask. I will put ask in bold. People know this. I've got a trademark here. Ask in bold with the specific thing that I want them to do. Lots of people will jump right to that
Yeah.
and then see that summary. And that gives that executive summary, if you will,
Sure.
that says, I respect that your time is valuable and I'm
Yeah.
not going to make you read through. I'm going to give you the short and sweet.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You talked about two things. One is people are kind of thinking this is what I want to communicate. They're focused on communicating, really not understanding the audience. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how do we evaluate the audience? What kind of things that we need to think about in terms of personas, in terms of their
Mhm.
designation title, in terms of their cognitive bandwidth, how much they can
Yeah.
absorb with the information that you can tell.
Well, I think, obviously with this role, it's all about relationships, right?
Yeah.
So one of the big things that we should be doing before we even start communicating is seek to understand. We have to listen.
Yeah.
And that was something that was hard for me initially in my journey that I had to really work to get better at, is listening, asking the questions and understanding what is really their problem, or what are they trying to solve for, or what do they need? What is the use case? What is, obviously I work in IT. Not every BRM is going to have an IT. It could be healthcare, lots of different things. But usually, whether it's IT, healthcare, whatever it may be, you've got a support and you've got a business, and it could be IT in the business,
Yeah.
as my example.
Yeah.
There could be dysfunction because the business has something to do and IT has something to do. How do we marry them? And
Yeah.
you have to understand from both parties,
Right.
because everybody's going to have something that is important to them. How
Right.
do we marry them and really understand
Yeah.
versus just communicating?
Awesome.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah, that's absolutely makes sense. So, can you describe a situation where your role and specifically the clarity of communication was essential in instilling that value? Because you have gone through several scenarios of where you've been an account manager towards managing a teams of people. Can you give us a little bit of a situation where how you kind of handle that in terms of clarity of communication?
Yeah, I'm actually a really good one is something I'm going through right now. So, in demand management, one of the things that I'm tasked with doing is getting a better understanding of services that we could offer our customers proactively versus reactively.
Right.
And one is we've got, you guys may have heard of a tool called Canva. It's an
That's
online
right.
visual desktop publishing type of tool. There are also alternatives like Adobe. I got a question around, hey, what does our demand look like for this Canva application?
Mm.
And in the state of Virginia, from a security perspective, we have certain protocol processes that we go through to make sure that we secure the Commonwealth, because since as a service provider, we provide those IT infrastructure services, we're in this like secure gated community, if you will, of
Right.
67 executive branch agencies. So in order to protect it, we have to make sure that any type of SaaS, cloud type of application meets certain security requirements.
Right.
If they don't, it's not approved, you find alternates, that sort of thing. So I was asked to find demand for this Canva use. And I said, well, why? What's driving this? I know a leader, a chief, in fact, my chief has asked this question, but why?
Correct.
Why? What's the use? So I started digging into some data. One, at our own agency, we use Adobe because it actually provides all of the same services.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, okay, well, what are you missing from not using Canva and what have you gained?
Correct.
And I was told we've actually gained a lot more,
Wow.
and XYZ, we've gained these. So then I ask the question, well, how many people are actually using it? I try to find some data to
Right.
back it up. How many people are actually using it? And I'm told by our comms people, well, we have a report showing the use case. And the report that I got was an email to our CIO from a salesman at Canva saying we have 1,000 people. Okay. Do you have the list of those 1,000 people, the agencies they work for? Because within our support model, we have 67 executive branch agencies, but there are localities and higher ed that are not in our gated community, and
Right.
they don't really count when we're looking at a
Correct.
service that
Correct.
we provide. So I don't have any data except a salesman.
Right.
So when my response is, okay, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what your ask is. Here's what I'm seeing as far as the use case is concerned. Here's the use. We don't have data to back it up.
Yeah.
Here's the alternative that we have that is approved. Tell me more that you're looking for and
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
So again, getting that bigger understanding and what are they trying to get at and why? And it all stemmed down to it was just a salesman. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really a big deal, but
Absolutely. And in terms of the challenges, right? As you go through a lot of these times, how do you coach people? Because a lot of times these people need to step up. I know like Victoria could do it, but beyond Victoria, the rest of the BRMs or people should also start thinking about it. Is there a way that you would educate the business relationship managers to go into that more?
yeah.
How do they kind of develop that skill or acumen to move this really well?
That's really hard to be honest.
Right.
It's very difficult. So, number one, the biggest thing is yes, it is easier to do it yourself, but is that the right way? No, it's not. So the number one thing, I think I have two things, but the number one thing is that, and I hate to say it's a template, but it's a template of the 5 W's and the H.
Sure.
What, why, who, when, where, how.
Right.
Asking those questions before you communicate anything. And then next is taking that step back and taking that breather to talk to people to understand what they're trying to do, what is their motivator, what is their challenge, just really understanding because there's some hidden things
Yeah.
that drive, and without understanding that, you're not going to be able to communicate and get the influence. Because I once took a very, very short little class, but it stuck with me, and it was about what communication really is. Aside from that template, it's 25% resolving a problem,
Mhm.
and it's 75% the psychological. So
Mhm.
if you have somebody with a problem, if you respond back and you answer their problem, but you don't address their 75% need, like their empathy, like I really understand how
Right.
you're feeling and your use case with this. If you don't respond to that, they're happy they got an answer, but usually, it's from a customer experience perspective, it's not up high.
Correct.
Whereas if you have somebody where you didn't resolve their problem, however, you said, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your use case. I'm working really hard to try to get you more. I want to understand more about your use case. And, maybe even like when you're going to check back with them, they're more likely to trust you than the person who just gave them an answer. It's 75% psychological. And I find that that's pretty relevant 95% of the time. There are the few cases that are like, nah, just give me an answer. And
Yeah.
you need to know who those people are, those stakeholders.
No, that's
But
true. And you hit a point about what I call as any kind of time a business partner asks some question, there is some kind of rational expectations of what you deliver as a product or a service, but there are emotional expectations that needs to be fulfilled. So a combination of rational expectations with emotional expectations gives that wow factor, right? Because it's like a complete package. And it
Yeah.
just resonates with what you said that 75% is going to be your emotional expectations. Are you fully within? Have you been wired in terms of what your business partner is asking? And I'm doing everything
Yeah.
to make that happen. So that's a pretty powerful way to put that into context.
And just to pull on that thread a little bit, I think that's why in this type of role, we talk about the relationship so much, but it is so, so key to invest in that time with your business, with your
Right,
stakeholders.
right.
Because if you don't do that, you are never going to get to where you need to be. You're
Correct,
not. You
correct,
have to invest. And it's hard with some,
correct,
how do I get my foot in the door? They're so busy. There are other things that you need to do to find, the common ground or find other ways to be able to get their attention. And that's a different conversation.
correct.
But it's really, really crucial to invest that time because otherwise you don't know what type of audience they are. You don't know where they're coming from emotionally, which, knowing those things is going to help you with your communication.
Awesome. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you have seen in communicating the right message? What prevents people from communicating right? Is it a lack of time? Is it a lack of preparation? What has typically been the common reasons why communication is not done well? And there is always a boomerang effect.
Yeah. I think and this has just been in years and years and years for me. I think honestly, the number one thing is not putting yourself in the shoes of the person reading it.
Right,
And I try to do that. I review a lot of our communications that go out because I will read it and think, what are they going to ask? And, obviously there are some communications that are meant to be shorter. We don't want to give too much information. We want
right,
to keep it limited. And there are other information that we want to include more, but to what extent?
right,
You don't, if you leave them with questions that they're going to be asking that's going to spin,
right.
if I can't put it in this communication, what can I give that reader that assures them I'm going to come back with, maybe there's an FAQ coming or maybe there's a follow-up communication or whatever that is. Trying to ask those questions, what are they missing? What are the gaps? How can I address those gaps, whether it's today in this communication or whether it's later? And that's where I think that people miss, because then when that communication goes out, they go, well, I don't understand. Why are they asking this?
Correct,
Really asking those questions. And I think that's just anticipating
correct,
what's
correct.
going to be asked. And that
Absolutely.
comes with practice. It comes with time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Correct. Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about the email versus phone and textual communication. Because today, with this whole information explosion happening around, there's notifications and stuff that is coming all over the
Yes.
place. How do we maintain the sanctity of which mode to communicate to your business partners, to your teams? What's working, what's not working? That's kind of a nightmare in so much different. You have too much options. So, do you
Yeah.
recommend some good options about how people should use or leverage technology and tools to make the right communication or right pattern to convey the message?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't use text unless it's hey, I'm in the lobby. Can you come get me? Or can I, do I need to go that quick, that kind of thing. There's nothing important, that sort of thing. Text is reserved. Or if you're meeting a business partner for lunch,
Right.
hey, are you here? That sort of thing. Text is strictly for that.
So,
We have Teams chat, and then we also have email.
mm,
Teams chat is great, but because of retention policies, you're losing the artifact.
yeah,
So if there's something that you're sending that's anything of a nature where you need to refer to it another time, or it's a reporting type of method, I strongly encourage email. Now, if there is a communication that is misinterpreted, there's like other people are on it, it's a back and forth. If it's more than two, pick up the phone, or let's just quick little quick little meeting. And I'm not the big meeting person.
Right.
If anything, that's another communication is when I do a meeting, I keep it for under 30 minutes
Nice.
and I always have an agenda and a purpose for that meeting. Always.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't, but I do because they know exactly what to expect and how they can prepare going in.
Absolutely
So
good. And another thing you I liked what you said was about being conscious about the time. With your business partner, you cannot get more than 30 minutes. So you really need to be sharp. And I've seen a lot of people extend, right? They speak for 20 minutes and then they don't allow enough amount of time for the business partner to get back. So you really need to be conscious. You really need to be nailing down on one thing that you want to achieve and being communicated. Now that
agree.
brings us to the last one of the three to four, couple of questions. The last question was, what communication guidance would you provide to new and existing BRMs as they navigate their journey? How do they go about doing this? Because they get lost. It's like the child wonder. They're in the new block. They want to know what needs to be done. So how do you expect them to?
So, I used to work with, when I was over the CAM team, I used to work with them about doing an executive summary all the time.
Hmm.
And I think that if you remember back when we were in, and I hate to say grade school, but in grade school, and I think it's like fifth grade, that they have you read like a couple of paragraphs and
Right,
then summarize it.
right,
That
correct.
is a skill that is lost. And
Hmm.
we need to get back to that.
Right,
Almost like everything I needed to know, I learned in kindergarten, everything, are you smarter than a fifth grader? This actually goes with that.
right,
Go back to fifth grade, make sure that from a communication standpoint, if you want to train yourself, practice whatever you're seeing, be able to summarize it. And again, you can use the what, why, when, what, you can use that as a template, but at least be able to summarize exactly what you're seeing
right,
so you can be able to speak to it and add value.
right.
That's number one. And then number two, practice.
Hmm.
Everything that you do is going to take practice and
Yeah,
it gets easier with time. That's why some of us who've been doing it a while, it seems like it's easy. It's just we've been doing it a long time.
right.
But, if you don't practice, you're not going to get there.
Yeah,
Practice does make perfect
yeah,
or close to perfect.
yeah. And what are some of the lessons learned over the years that you thought that communication was so important? Because a lot of times, as you rightly said, it comes with practice. It's about the hardships that you've gone through. Some things were broken. So what are some of the key lessons learned over the years in terms of the do's and don'ts of communication,
Yeah.
particularly from a business stakeholder and business partners kind of thing? We're very busy. They everybody has today the attention deficit syndrome. So how do we? What are some of the key things that you've learned that are important when it comes to communication?
Well, again, the key thing is knowing your audience because
Right.
to your point, when they're busy people, um, there are there are people who communicate and give a lot, lots and lots and lots. A busy person is going to delete it. They're not even going to read it and you've lost them before they could even read what could have been good information. So knowing your audience and tailoring to that audience, short and sweet. In addition, you may have an audience that might want a little bit more. Again, don't go too big, but maybe the summary at the top and some details at the bottom. Hey, in case you want more, here are just a couple of little bullet point details. Happy to chat with you if you want more. That's a really good lesson learned. Also, I think that communication can go bad. It's the easiest thing to me to be able to do, but it has the biggest impact. Think about whenever there's a big outage or something like that, and then there's no communication.
Yeah.
People flip out like we didn't know what was going on. That lack of communication and transparency will kill trust.
Correct.
So being able to do it early and do it clear and right is so, so important.
Yeah.
So
And I think you said it right in terms of lack of communication means that you are not creating the trust, openness, and transparency. And this has happened a lot of times. And are we also doing this over communication? Do you see there are instances where we over communicate that we should not be doing it? How does it play out?
at Vita, we talk about that often because since there was such a need for transparency, we tend to over communicate. So we've actually looked into How many communications do we send out? How often do we send out? How can we be more specific so we're not sending a whole bunch all at once or at 3 o'clock on a Friday? And where are there opportunities to consolidate our messaging? So it's a fine line. There are sometimes a need that it may seem like you're over communicating. I know for us, because we are a large service provider and because we provide to so many different people and we have lots of services, sometimes that does happen and we still need to have it out there. But, having alternatives, like what for us, we send a communication, but we also have a website that's specifically for our IT leaders. And all of the communications are there. So if they miss it or they're too busy, they can always, there's a repository there that they can see those
Right.
at a later time, because it does seem sometimes like, oh my gosh, there's so much, I can't possibly read it all. But also in how we write it, to make sure we also have like a summary up at the top, just kind of like for awareness, and then we go into the detail.
Yeah. So final question would be, as BRMs navigate through this whole journey of working with the business partners closely, what kind of training they need to undergo, what kind of best practices they need to follow to be good in communication. Communication would be written communication, your oral communication, body language, having a sense of empathy, doing the listening. There's so many moving parts towards an effective and persuasive communication. So what would you suggest for someone aspiring to be good like you, to hit the deck? What would be
Yeah.
your suggestions?
In any role, whether you're a BRM or not, I'm a big advocate for continuous development.
Right.
And I think there are, like LinkedIn Learning, there's a lot of really good, short and sweet types of tutorials out there and how to be better at communication. That's number one. Don't be afraid to do that kind of thing. But I know it can seem like that's all I'm doing. How do I apply it? Find a mentor that is the type of communicator you want to be.
Right.
Ask them to help you and work with you.
Right.
And practice. And don't be afraid to get that constructive criticism, because getting that constructive criticism is going to make you better. It doesn't feel good at first, but that's what's going to make you better. And I'd rather have it from that trusted mentor than from a customer.
Awesome. That's been a great delight, Victoria, to talk to you. And we can talk for us, but that's for another episode, probably later. But thank you so much for sharing practical nuggets of wisdom in terms of communication and how the business relationship managers can make them empowered to do the right things, the right messaging, because messaging is everything. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So thank you so much for sharing your valuable
Thank
insights. I'm
you.
sure people will get to know a lot. How can people reach out to you if they want to have a conversation? What's the best way to reach out to you?
I am on LinkedIn, Victoria Harness.
Nice.
So reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, viewers. And you saw the passion she has for communication and how critical is communication, both in all formats of your game. So if you want to be a good business relationship manager, step up your game in terms of communication in all formats. Look at some of the self-development work, but also practice and find the right mentor. What a great way to wrap up for this BRM Brownbag. We look forward to seeing you. Please make sure that you click on the subscribe button so that you are constantly posted about the new episodes. Thank you so much, everyone. And we hope to see you all in our next version of the BRM Brownbag. Thank you again, Victoria.
Bye. Thanks for having me.